Hello, everyone. As you see, the title of my presentation is Muslim Female Leaders from the Past, Historical, Cultural, and Contextual Implications. This is a research that was conducted by Dr. Lamiae Laghzaoui, Dr. Maysaa Barakat, and myself. The outline is as follows: the introduction, then we are going to move to the problem statement, and we'll see the objectives and research questions. We'll also take a look at the literature review and the methodology, and then we'll share the findings. And at the end, we're going to give a conclusion. So the problem statement of this research is as follows. It focuses on how women agency and leadership is viewed as a new concept brought by the West and imparted to other civilizations in modern times. And it also tries to shed a light on the misrepresentations of Muslim women in history, in particular, and religious women in general. And then also there are some assumptions about Muslim women being subdued and subjugated by men since early Islam. And also the assumption that Western civilization values have freed women from submission and brought them equality and emancipation, or at least they try to do so. So these are the issues that we wanted to focus on through our study. As you can see in this title of this slide, as Timothy Mitchell says, to become modern is to act like the West. And this is based on colonial theory. So one of the major objectives of this research is to challenge colonial theories and imperial assumptions about emancipation and leadership when it comes to women, and also how colonialism and imperialism suggest that Western powers during the era of colonialism and imperialism believed in superiority of the culture and values. They viewed the society they colonized as backward. They needed Western civilization's values, including gender equality. And this led to a perception that the West was civilizing or modernizing societies. Also, it's kind of uncovering how Eurocentrism shows that European culture and Western values are superior and serve as a model for the rest of the world. And this ethnocentric view has contributed to the belief that the West brought progress, including women's emancipation, to other religions. Therefore, our focus is to try to highlight how, for example, these ideas, as shown in this paragraph, are just based on colonialism and Eurocentrism, and they are not. They have no evidence in history in Islam. So as you can see, Osmani et al. Wrote in 2019, non-Muslim writers assert that Islam has not only deprived the women of political rights, but they are also broadly neglected in Islam socially, economically, and culturally. From the perspective of Islamic orthodoxy, Islam raised the status of women in all aspects, but the focus of the orthodox is only limited to social status of women. Thus, the objectives of our research is to look at geography books. These are history books that provide biographies of women in history. Mainly men in history. The ones that we looked at focus on men in medieval Islam or medieval Morocco. So our first objective is to scrutinize the role women played in medieval Islam in leading societies and educating people. The second objective is exploring the news of the emancipation of women in medieval Islam. And the third is to investigate the historical, cultural, and socioeconomic factors that have enabled these women to lead. You can see here two women from Morocco, Fatima al-Fihriya and Zainab al-Nabdawiya. So the question that we raised in this research is how have these women who led during medieval Morocco demonstrated leadership and agency? How were they perceived in their societies? What are the contextual, cultural, and historical factors that contributed to their leadership and agency? In order to do that, we have reviewed the literature around these questions, and we have focused on two aspects. The first one focuses on how Muslim women are portrayed in colonial discourse and Eurocentric frameworks, and how the colonial theory and research challenge these Eurocentric narratives by reframing women's identity, agency, and role in Muslim societies. While the second aspect focuses on how, for example, women or Muslim women were misrepresented in books and in history, and often neglected, and often their agency and resilience were neglected. That's why we call neglect of historical agency. And women have historically played, while women have historically played vital roles in various fields, including politics, scholarship, activism, and social change. And the second part of this second aspect is cultural insensitivity that that is shown in some representations of Muslim women's history, which fail to recognize the cultural, ethnic, and regional diversity that shapes their identities and experiences, and have kind of skim and scan the literature around that. The theoretical framework we have used, we focus on it's a historical study of these Muslim women leadership and agency through first agency and empowerment through the colonial theory, using the colonial theory that highlight the agency of women, Muslim women, in shaping their own destinies and contributing to various aspects of society, and underscores that women have actively participated in leadership roles within the Islamic world throughout history. Then we focus on complex and diverse histories, showing that the colonial theory recognizes the complexity and diversity of Muslim women's historical experiences, but it emphasizes that Muslim women have held leadership positions in various fields, such as political, academia, religious scholarship, and social activism, contributing to the richness of Islamic civilization. And the last aspect of our theoretical framework is intersectional perspectives through the colonial theory that adopts an intersectional approach, acknowledging that Muslim women's leadership is influenced by various factors, including race, class, ethnicity, and regional context. This approach captures the multifaceted nature of their experiences. Hence, our methodology was sequential explanatory research design. First, we used a prosopographic approach. As you can see, prosopography is the investigation of the common background characteristics of a group of actors in history by means of a close study of their lives. Dr. Lamiae Laghzaoui, who is a professor of history and researcher in history, has expertise in using prosopography in research in order to identify the characteristics of individuals and within groups. So which allowed us to come up with a number of identify a number of women in medieval Islam or medieval Morocco based on the theoretical framework that we have just seen. And then we have used the data that we have gathered to glean some qualitative data around the role, the leadership and agency of these women. So using hagiography books, so we collected data through hagiography books using a survey. The findings that we have had, we're going to focus more on the qualitative part of the study of the findings. The women we identified were religious scholars, political leaders, and educators who actively contributed to positive change. Their piety, gender, and social status did not make them submissive or dominated by males. They showed agency and leadership at different levels. They were admired and supported by men, and most men considered them leaders, scholars, and springs of knowledge. It's true that the hagiography books focus on men, so they were biographies of men, but through our prosopographic approach and through our survey, we tried to glean information about women who lived with these men and in these societies, and we have been successful in doing so. So we focus on their women's leadership and agency, and we have had ideas or data, qualitative data focusing on their vision and initiative, the vision and initiative of these women, their role in education and empowerment, their political leadership and activism, and their jurisprudence, leadership, and scholarship as well. We will focus on some examples. We're going to give some cases, case studies through 4 women. The first one shows leadership in political affairs. Some women in medieval Morocco held positions of political power, such as queen mothers, regents, and advisors to ruling dynasties. These women often played pivotal roles in court politics. And one example that we have, which is a notable figure, is Queen Zainab al-Nabzawiya, who served as a regent for her young son in the 10th century. The second example or case study shows women empowerment, how these women that we have identified played a role, an important role in women empowerment. And the example we have is Sayyida al-Hurra, who used to be a governor of Tetouan, a city in Morocco in the 16th century. And Sayyida al-Hurra's leadership and role as a powerful woman in a predominantly male-dominated society challenged traditional gender norms. Her position as a ruler and maritime leader served as an example of female empowerment and leadership. The third example shows how women played a role in Sufi and religious leadership. And the example we have is of a lady called Lalla Mira bint Ali, a revered Sufi saint. She was known for her spiritual teachings and her leadership in the Sufi tradition. Her influence extended beyond her lifetime. The last example we want to show is an example of professorship in crafts, and it's that of Sarah bint Ahmed bin Uthman bin Absalah al-Halabi, nicknamed Halabiya and Fasiya, from Aleppo and Fes as well. So she came to Fes from Aleppo in Syria, and she was a professor of poets and a skilled doctor who had a prominent position in literature, and she mastered various crafts. Now, the implications that we have drawn from these studies show a new perspectives. The first one is how questions like women leadership and agency in Muslim societies need to be reframed differently instead of applying traditional gender binary lenses and other Western methods to investigate them. And the second one shows how culture, family, social status are some of the variables that can contribute to understanding such an issue, and being sensitive to these variables might provide us with implications and understanding of the role these women played, instead of just applying one framework to studying the role of these women in society. So that framework, especially if it's Eurocentric, might hide a number of contributions that these women have had in society. As a conclusion, we want to highlight four major elements. The first one is recognition of women's agency. That's what this study highlights, is that women's agency in medieval Islam in the 12th, 13th, 14th century, and beyond that, probably 2 centuries post medieval Morocco, showed that these women had agency, and that this agency needs to be recognized, even if it's not clear in the books that we have studied. But using novel approaches like prosopography can highlight this agency. There is a complex interplay of gender and religion, so we cannot use a binary framework to study the role of these women through gender as it is applied in Western cultures or Western studies. Cultural and regional contexts matters a lot. So understanding how these regional contexts and cultural contexts, as well as the history, affects how women are portrayed, or how women contribute to their societies, is also of great importance. And the last important aspect is documentation and preservation. So we wish there is more research that can document and preserve this Islamic history and these Islamic traditions, and highlights and showcases how these women were leaders and had agency at that time, which shows that leadership and agency are not new concepts brought by the West to Muslim countries or Southern countries in general. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.